Hey, you, how you going? Eyes up here. I am Jazza from Draw with Jazza, and this video is a bit of a comprehensive coverall VR headset review. Now before we get to that, I wanted to explain the format of this video. If you're watching this on a phone or device with a gyroscope, you can use this thing called Magic Window. Now if you're off center, and if you're looking at my feet or somewhere else, you can just press the screen, move it around until you're centered, like so, and then you can watch the video by moving up and down and looking around into the 3D space. You can hit the settings with the 3 dots in the top right corner and up the resolution, which may be default set to quite low because you may not have watched this sort of video before or changed that setting. So the reason this format is so fun isn't just for this whole cool window thing, really it's about the headsets. So if you have a cheap VR headset, you can just tap that little headset icon in the bottom right corner, hit continue and grab your, what have I got here? This is a Google Daydream. You can use a cardboard, you can use a Gear VR, whatever it is, and watch it in stereoscopic space with 2 eyes in depth. You'll be in my studio, it's really cool. If you're not hugely sold on this new video format, just rest assured it's not gonna take over sorts of content I'm putting out. It'll just be in addition to the videos I'm putting out. So I usually do 3 videos a week, but anytime there'll be a VR180 video, I'll add it in as an extra video. So you're not missing out on the content you already know and love, but I get a chance to try something new, and I'd encourage you to try it out as well. And hopefully you'll find a way that you can consume it and enjoy some of the content I'll be putting out. Anyways, this video is going to be a bit of a coverall review of VR headsets, especially as we come up to the gift giving season, so that you might know what to ask for yourself or what to get for a loved one. And it's going to range, as far as my experience goes, from the very, very cheap 3 Degrees of Freedom, really, really cheap, sort of find it for 10 bucks in an airport VR headset, all the way up to the top of the line VR headsets you can get today and everything in between. So I hope you enjoy this review. Let's get started with some cheapies. This is a Google Cardboard headset, and this is just some random cheap VR headset I got from, I don't know, was it a game convention or something, and they hand them out. It was literally free in a show bag. So you really can just pick up a VR viewer or headset for as little as $10 or less, free if you're lucky. And it's quite simple. You just pop it into there and you can view through the lens. And look at that! It's a stereoscopic experience. It's perfectly adequate for viewing VR 180 video. So if you want to experience what I'm sharing with you now, you can do that for free. And you can watch my lack of coordination with me here in my studio. But you don't have to go super, super cheap. If you want to experience just a few simple VR experiences, you can get cheap headsets. Each of these on my far left cost like $5 to $20. I didn't spend over $20 on a cheap VR headset, but they also come with pros and cons, so it's worth just sort of looking up reviews and seeing what people recommend. This one, for example, looks really boxy when you have the headset on, and it feels really cheap and it's quite bulky. This one, for example, has a rubber material which keeps pressing the screen when I try and put it on. And this one is actually pretty decent, but it doesn't have a headset strap, so you just have to sort of hold it like that. So again, pros and cons for the don't know what they are mix of cheap VR headsets, and you'll see them in airports and at Kmart. But this is one that I can definitely recommend, which is on the higher end of the cheap VR headsets, and this is a Google Daydream. It has a sensor in this flap here, so you can pop most modern phones in there and it will automatically snap into a VR viewer. You just pop it in there and you've got the strap, and it actually has a control so you can navigate and point at things and play games. And it's really, really cool, especially for something that costs less than $100 on average. At this point in the video, there's actually a headset missing called the Oculus Go, and when recording it I didn't have one and didn't have thoughts on it, but I thought it was worth covering, so I actually went and bought one, and now I have an Oculus Go. What is the Oculus Go, and how is it different from the cheap mobile VR headsets that we've gone into and the expensive headsets we're about to touch on later in the video? Well, the Oculus Go sits squarely in the middle of these, in that it's a 3 Degrees of Freedom headset, meaning you can really only look up and down and around like this. You can't move around in 3D space like that. However, it's not using a mobile phone. It's a self-contained device. You just get the headset and the remote, meaning it's an entirely dedicated to virtual reality headset system. Initially, when I first got this thing and gave it a crack, I thought it would mainly be a media consumption device, much like mobile VR. Really useful for watching Netflix and YouTube VR and downloading your own videos and that sort of thing. But really, actually, it's so polished, and some of the experiences and games that I've just dabbled with in the last couple of days have really blown me away and changed my assumptions about this device and actual cheap VR in general. I think this has really pushed the boundaries of what people can afford on a low end budget. So it's still a couple of $100 US, which is far below the $400 to $600 for a full 6 Degrees of Freedom headset separate to the computer that you need to run it. However, some of the games and experiences are fantastic. There's even a little painting one. It's fairly simple compared to Tilt Brush, and you can't move your hand around in 3D space, but you can make some cool stuff. And there are some gallery apps and really cool experiences and some games that are really polished. So I had to include this because honestly, now that I have it, it would be unwise of me to not throw it into this review, to just let you guys know if you're actually looking for something squarely in the middle, you want great VR, but you don't want to break the budget, you want a fun, simple gift to give or get. It's actually really good, and I feel like there's a lot to learn and explore from this thing, and that's just my first impression. So there you go, Oculus Go. The other headset that I realize I have neglected to include in this review are the Windows mixed reality headsets. I don't own any of them. From what I can see in reviews and stuff, they're pretty cool in that you don't need external sensors. You can just plug into a laptop or computer, use their controllers, and get a 6 Degrees of Freedom experience, and it is more affordable than the Vive and around, I think, the same price point as the Oculus headset. However, the tracking, from what I hear, isn't as good as the other aforementioned Rift and Oculus headset. So I just thought I'd include it in there as an option for getting into higher end virtual reality experiences, because at that point, from sort of the Oculus Rift Windows mixed reality headsets upwards, that's when you start to get some more intense and exciting VR experiences. Anyways, that's my interjection here. Time to jump back into my little headset review, in which we'll be jumping straight into 6 Degrees of Freedom headsets, starting off with the PlayStation VR. What I mean by 6 Degrees of Freedom is with all of the headsets I've mentioned so far and their controls, everything is sort of frozen in place. So when you wear these headsets, you can look up and down, left or right. Lack of coordination is embarrassing, but you can't move around in physical space. But moving on from those, with all of these you can, and the difference it makes is amazing. Not only does it make it more comfortable and you don't feel motion sick easily or anything like that, which isn't that bad with these headsets depending on the content you watch or games you play, but the level of immersion and sense of presence is absolutely astounding. Starting off with the PSVR, easily the most affordable version of 6 Degrees of Freedom virtual reality. You can put this on and move around in 3D space and see things if you lean over edges and look under things in certain games. It's really cool. Now, there are a few things to keep in mind. First of all, you need a PlayStation 4 to use this thing. I got it for Christmas and was actually really pleasantly surprised by how cool it is, and also the amount of content they have available. One thing I do want to go over very quickly are the controllers that you have access to. Starting off with the stock standard PS4 controller, a lot of the PSVR games and applications do utilize this, which is fine, because I actually find that using the PSVR is a much more sit down, relaxing virtual reality experience. However, if you want to get a little more intense, there are two other options. We have the PlayStation 4 Move controllers and the Move gun, the aim. Frank review, these things, I don't like them. I haven't played any games that I particularly enjoy using these with. I have Skyrim on PSVR. It's a cool experience, but it's uncomfortable with these, and they don't have a joystick and they're not very responsive. So I'm not a huge fan of games that use the Move controllers. This thing, however, is actually astounding. And one of my favorite games on PSVR is Farpoint, which utilizes this, and I wouldn't recommend playing Farpoint without the aim controller. It's so immersive and natural feeling and really, really fun. Honestly, some of the best fun I've had playing games has been in PSVR. Moss is another one that's really cool, and again only uses the default PS4 controller. I believe as far as value for money goes, the PSVR is definitely right up the top there. And if you own a PS4, you're already halfway there. I can highly recommend it, and I believe it'll be a big seller this Christmas. Now, moving on to the Oculus Rift, this is another top one for me, mainly because of the ecosystem and just the comfort and usability of this device. You use these controllers here. These are the Oculus Rift Touch controllers, and they're really comfortable. And this is where we can start to get into art programs in particular, because a lot of you watching this will be artists, because this is Draw with JAZZA. There haven't been on PSVR any great art applications so far. There's one coming up called Dreams, which looks really cool, but so far, nothing very impressive. However, when you get to the Oculus Rift and beyond is where you have a huge variety of not only games, but incredible and actually very practical art, sculpture, painting programs at your disposal. Starting off with my favorite ones, which are actually exclusive to the Oculus Rift, which are Oculus Quill and Oculus Medium. Oculus Medium is going to be my number one favorite art program. It's so fun and really professional. You can sculpt incredible pieces and 3D print them. You can turn them into characters that you later rig and turn into animatable figures. It's just not only practical, but really organic and well designed. The headset is really comfortable. As you can see, it comes with the headphones and everything. And not only does it have the Oculus Store where you can access those exclusive titles, but it also has the whole Steam library. So you can use programs like Tilt Brush and other amazing art programs, as well as some incredible games. But of course, you'll need a decent computer to run them off of. But fortunately, the headset and controllers and the computers capable of running them are getting cheaper and cheaper. And this Christmas, I think, will be the first time that a lot more people will be able to use high-end virtual reality than ever before. Speaking of high-end virtual reality, let's get to the top end of the prosumer market of virtual reality. We're getting a bit more expensive here. We have the HTC Vive. This was the first ever really high quality 6 Degrees of Freedom VR headset and controllers that have been released, and they're really great. The controllers are a bit bulky but very usable and practical, and for some experiences even preferable. If you're looking for high-end VR, I wouldn't get this version of the HTC Vive. I would wait until there's a good competitor, or if you're interested, you could get the Vive Pro. Again, it's a little expensive, but if you're a prosumer and you have a great PC which can already run it, and you feel like you'd be interested in the best of the best as of recording this video, this is definitely the best of the best. And as far as comfort levels go and usability over a long period of time, and for semi-professional use goes, creating art or developing games, this thing is going to get you through in comfort and style for very long play sessions and art sessions. That's my rough guide for all of these headsets, but I'm going to give you just a few little pro tips and my personal recommendations. Starting off with a few pro tips, one of which is something people are often concerned about when it comes to VR, which is motion sickness. Motion sickness happens when your brain and the inner ear sense that movement that you're experiencing visually isn't happening physically, and therefore makes you feel sick. Now, what I'm actually describing isn't the worst feeling in the world, but I will say that if you start to feel a little queasy, just stop and come back 20 minutes later, give it another go, and you will acclimatize to it pretty quickly, and it can be worth doing so. I did with Farpoint in the PSVR. It took me about a day or two of maybe an hour and a half sessions until I could play non-stop and love it, and actually run around in the game and be really aggressive with my motion. So I built up to that pretty quick, and it became very comfortable. But you can also help yourself out a bit by eating ginger before you play in VR. That sounds really weird, but it's actually, there's something in the ginger that helps with queasy stomach or something. And then also just having airflow in the room is really important too. So just having a fan blow on you. And another thing that I find really useful, especially when you're playing games where you walk around, is to actually be standing and to rock back and forth on your legs. I keep my feet in the same spot, but I actually rock my knees back and forth that simulate the sense of walking, so that I can move around or even run around and really feel like I am moving around and running around, and I don't start to feel sick at all. So there are a few of my getting stuck into VR tips. Now for my recommendations. Again, if you have a PlayStation 4, this will be one of the most fun things you buy, especially if you get the right games. There are some people who get the PSVR headset and use a couple of the game demos or buy one or two random games they don't entirely know if they're great or not, and then feel like the experience isn't that great. I can highly recommend this thing, especially with games like Moss, with games like Farpoint, as I mentioned. As far as my next recommendation goes, I won't recommend the HTC Vive yet because the price is a little too high when recording this video, and competitors are coming. So I would definitely recommend the Oculus Rift currently because it's super affordable, and not only do they have all of the Steam content that the HTC Vive have, but they have their own store with some exclusive titles. And Facebook, who bought Oculus, have invested quite a lot into the development of various games, including a Marvel superheroes game and the art programs that I mentioned before, which are really polished and really fun. So my high-end recommendations are definitely the PSVR and the Oculus Rift plus Touch. And then as far as outliers go, if you don't have much of a budget, get a decent little headset like a Daydream and that'll get you by. Otherwise, if you just want to experience something like this video, just grab a Google Cardboard and have a little look and see if it tickles your fancy. That's it for this video and my recommendations and guide. I hope you enjoy it. Make sure to hit that like button and of course subscribe to Draw with Jazza for more fun with art and occasional techie, geeky and VR stuff. Until next time, I'll see you later. I can't play the splash screen because that's in for my 2D video, so I guess I'll just walk away. Bye. See you later.